We are live now.
Good evening, everyone. Call to order a meeting for the Normal Town Council for Monday, November 2nd, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos,
Here.
Mr. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Cummings,
Here.
Mr. Nord,
Here.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Here.
Mr. Preston.
Here.
We will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The governor has issued a disaster declaration relating to public health concerns caused by the statewide COVID-19 pandemic. As mayor, I have determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the risk of exposure to the COVID-19 virus stemming from an indoor gathering, and that the remote meeting is the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the council staff and general public. We have no public comment tonight. We will go to the omnibus agenda items that will be considered with one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. Ms. Smith?
Yes, I'd like to pull item E.
And Mr. Nord?
Thank you. I'd like to pull item B, as in boy.
A motion for approval, please.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Items considered on the omnibus vote are an ordinance conditionally vacating easements on lots 152, 153, and 154 of the Heather Ridge subdivision, and a resolution conditionally approving the final plat of the Cyphers subdivision by expedited process, and this also has to do with the Heather Ridge subdivision. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
I would say aye, but I didn't hear in the omnibus call out the approval of
The minutes.
Did
Yes. I was just thinking that also included is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting for October 19th. Thank you, Ms. Cummings.
I still say aye.
Aye.
all right, Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mayor Coos.
Aye. Item B is a report to receive and file town of normal expenditures for payment as of October 28th, 2020. Mr. Nord?
I move to report to file or to receive and file the town of normal expenditures.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Nord?
Yes. Under city manager administration, there's several appraisals that are listed under there. For public education, would you explain what the end goal purpose is for these appraisals, please?
Sure, Mr. Nord. We, staff had requested these appraisals be conducted on 4 different parcels. We will be using those appraisals to evaluate a future, well, I should say we will be using the results of those appraisals to evaluate proposals that we might receive when we get to the point of issuing a request for proposals to dispose of these parcels. We'll use these appraisals to evaluate the proposals we receive and whether or not council is interested in selling and disposing of those parcels.
Thank you. And then for the under Public Works Midwest Fiber, there's a bill or an expense for $16,484,000. We had started emailing a little bit about this, but from my understanding, I think you were going to check on this. 15,000 of that was the drop box, just the servicing, and then the remaining almost $1,500 is for the processing alone. Is that accurate?
I don't think those numbers are quite accurate if I understood you correctly, and we do have Mr. Aldrich on the line. I believe of that total amount, which is $16,484, $7,500 would be the monthly Dropbox recycling costs. The rest would be the processing of our curbside collection. And I see Mr. Aldrich is got his camera on now.
Yeah, that's correct, Ms. Reese. 7,500 for the extension of the Dropbox program, and that includes processing fees and collection fees for that program, and then the rest is the processing fees for our curbside collection, which varies based on the market value. We either get a credit or a charge based on the market values of the recyclable material.
Okay, thank you.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The motion is approved to report, receive and file town normal expenditures. Item E is a resolution authorizing an execution of the supply and processing agreement with Midwest Fiber and authorizing an associated budget adjustment. Ms. Smith?
I move this item.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Smith, it's all yours.
Thank you. Ms. Reese, I had sent some emails back and forth with you about the referencing back to our earlier discussion this year, where you reminded me that at present, we are providing recycling sites only in the town of Normal, but I believe you indicated some studies have demonstrated that Bloomington and McLean County residents are also using those sites. And it was my understanding from reading your responses that part of the effort was to pursue the discussion of an agreement between Normal and these other governing bodies to see if they would be interested in sharing the cost with us. Is that an accurate assessment of what was to have taken place while this contract was renewed?
That is absolutely accurate, Ms. Smith.
And so tonight, what we're voting on is a 2-month extension. And because I understand there've been a few things on the plate that might not have made this a priority item, do you feel confident that 2 months extension is an adequate time frame to accomplish this task now?
I do believe that, Ms. Smith, thank you for asking. We have introduced the concept with both the city and the county. We just have not had an opportunity for all three parties to get into detailed discussions regarding a potential intergovernmental agreement. And you are accurate, because the customers using our Dropbox facilities, based upon a survey of the Ecology Action Center, consist of residents of Normal, Bloomington, and the county. We felt that the time was right where we would try to explore a joint agreement with all three government entities.
Okay, so all we're doing tonight is voting on that extension to allow an additional amount of time to pursue this agreement.
Correct.
While we have Wayne Aldrich available, if I can please have the council's indulgence, I did receive the notice that the leaf pickup begins, and I was wondering if it would be possible for Mr. Aldridge to describe that, because it was news to me that the priority is by the neighborhoods that have the largest amount of trees, where there's going to be more heavy leaves. I had never considered that as a possibility, but I also see that there is a website that allows people to track it, and I was wondering if Mr. Aldridge would be so kind as to enlighten us while people have him available as a resource on how that happens.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Smith. The The leaf pickup began today. We have 4 crews out circulating, picking up leaves. The leaf pickup is by zone. And this year we looked at last year's history to see which zones were the most active from last year. And typically that follows with the zones with the most trees in them. So we did adjust the zones slightly this year, with the zones with the most activities being the first zones in the pickup. There are five zones throughout the town of Normal. Typically, we cycle through these zones about 4 times, maybe 5 times, depending on the season. On our website, there is an interactive map that tells residents which zone we're active in currently, so they can get on our website and look at the zones and kind of anticipate when their pickup will be based on where we're at in the zones. I think go ahead.
But it's not necessarily the same time as their garbage and recycling pickup.
No, not at all. Not at all at the same time. In the future, we may modify this again. As you know, we've just completed a tree inventory. So we may be able to do a canopy study based on that too, and apply more science to how we actually do pick up leaves. So with the heaviest canopy areas, maybe even change the extent of the zones in the future to provide a little bit more efficiency on the way we pick up leaves.
Okay, and thank you for allowing him the opportunity to do this, because I know this is one of the most popular features of the services the town of Normal provides. So that's all I had on this agenda item.
Mayor Kus, you're muted.
My apologies. Mr. Nord.
Thank you. From my understanding, when this was first brought before the council, which was before I was on, and the arrangement was made to give the equipment to the provider, wasn't this a cost savings measure that eventually the taxpayers were not going to be paying for the service?
Mr. Nord, I'll let Mr. Aldrich talk about the history. I don't believe that we ever considered the Dropbox program to be a break-even kind of operation. But Mr. Aldrich, do you want to talk about the history and our relationship with Midwest Fiber?
Sure. Yeah, we've been working with Midwest for quite some time, I believe since 2008. Their processing facility is located, as you probably know, here in Normal. So that's a big advantage to us, not as far as fall times are considered. But you might recall back in those days, recycling was generally, it was a break even, because recycled materials could be processed and then sold for a profit. So we didn't have to pay for processing in effect. We, meaning the town of Normal in-house, picked up the Dropbox locations and then hauled that material to Midwest Fiber. I think the cost at that time, the operating cost or collection cost on our part, was about $138,000 a year. And that was that data was collected in 2018 when we did the agreement as a cost savings measure to have Midwest Fiber take over the program. So as a part of that agreement in 2018, Midwest Fiber would actually pick up the locations, and we allowed them the use of a truck for 2 years and dumpsters, which ultimately became their property. So at this point in time, per that license agreement, which expired in March, the truck, the roll-off container truck, as well as the containers, the dumpsters, are in the possession and the property of Midwest Fiber. So they continue to provide the service, picking up the drop-off locations. And then at this point in March, again, the council approved to continue that service at $7,500 per month. Again, the recycling markets have changed. Two commodities, paper and cardboard, I think there's still typically a credit on, but the mixed containers, plastics, glass, things like that, there's actually a charge for the processing of that commodity. However, Midwest Fiber has continued to say we'll continue the program at $7,500 a month until we can negotiate a new agreement with them.
Okay,
The other thing
so-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so then was the original intent to save money? Is that why the original agreement was struck to give the equipment to the vendor and have them start servicing it?
No, go ahead, Wayne.
I think on our part, it saved, $138,000 at that time in operating costs. So that was considered a savings. The truck was about 6 years old at the time. So that was all factored into this agreement.
Okay,
And originally we had 8 Dropbox sites and we were looking to reduce those and even considered eliminating the program altogether as part of our budget cuts. But council chose to reduce the number of Dropbox sites and then work out this arrangement with Midwest Fiber.
yeah, and then we just gave them the dumpsters, which we valued at $0 here 6 months ago. And, they're worth more than $0 when I talked with the other vendors and equipment dealers. So really what we're talking about is just a servicing contract, picking up dumpsters and dumping them, which would be very similar to a waste hauler, picking up trash and taking it to the transfer station. Why is this contract not being bid out? Because this is a $90,000 a year contract.
Actually, I do want to make one correction. It is more than just picking up dumpsters. It is also sorting all the materials, sorting and processing all the recyclable materials, which is included in that fee. Am I
Okay,
correct,
so-
Mr. Aldrich?
That's correct. This fee, I think, is a very generous proposal from Midwest Fiber, $7,500 per month, which includes the collection and the processing.
7 days per week.
7 days per week collection. So, there could be other vendors that would be interested in this. However, Midwest Fiber does own the equipment now, and it is including the containers, and it is a 7 day per week operation. The contracts, the negotiations are going on right now. Probably will be separated collection versus processing in the future. That's the fair way to do it, I think. But I think this current arrangement is very fair by Midwest Fiber.
Yeah, I would like to see this bid out because there are waste haulers that I talked with whenever this came up before that questioned why this was not bid out, because this is literally picking up the boxes, taking them there, dumping them, and the processing would be separate anyway. So this is something that I would like to see bid out because it is, a lot of money a year. It's well over the $25,000, even if you subtract out the processing.
And in your conversation, Mr. Nord, they're willing to purchase drop boxes. Is that correct?
Well, at that point, the town still owned those containers.
Oh, we're not talking about then, we're talking about now.
Well, the way that I look at it is those containers were valued at $0. So if we buy them back from the vendor at $0, then the town would have it, and it would be much easier for us to just bid out the hauling portion of it.
Mr. McCarthy.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess a couple of things. again, it's not just hauling, it's hauling and processing. So they're doing both for the 7,500. So trying to separate that out doesn't really work. Part two is bringing this back to the conversation that I think this topic is about extending this agreement and bringing that back to full cycle here. I'm supportive of this. I did happen to speak with electeds that may be involved in the decision of an intergovernmental agreement. And they, of course, can't speak for their entire body, but indicated their support of this type of an approach to having this type of service available in the community. And so it seems like we've got some other government partners that are at least interested in the conversation. And it's worth a couple of months of continuing this to see if this is an option we can continue to have. Clearly, it's valued by our residents and it's used by our residents in the community, which is the point, is to make sure that if this is something our residents are using and wanting, that we find a cost-effective way to make this work. And I think we got some other governmental partners where that seem to be, at least from my conversations, interested in seeing if there's something we can work out together. So for those reasons, I'm very supportive of this.
Ms. Lorenz.
Yeah, and I mean, just to clarify, is that we're talking about a 2-month extension, right? So, Mr. Nord, I think you voted against this 6 months ago, and it sounds like you have some of the same concerns. So, you can vote against it this time for 2 months, and we'll see what, when they get the final IGA, take a look at it then. But I think we're belaboring a lot of the same points from 6 months ago for now 2 months.
Mr. Nord.
Thank you. This is a budget increase. Is that correct? This is not something that was previously in the budget?
No, we are asking council to authorize a $15,000 budget adjustment because it would be additional dollars on top of what council authorized 6 months ago.
Okay, so we've got a revenue shortage, and this is not something that is critical. We're not canceling recycling by any means. People still have the option to drive the recyclables to other locations, or we could look for, bid it out, see if we can find a lower cost alternative. So I would be in favor if we were to look at another option rather than just kick the can down for now another 2 months, because it's already been 6 months and we didn't find time to make an agreement. So I'm not in support of just extending this for 2 months, but I am in support of recycling.
I see lots of hands. Let's not beleaguer this too strongly. I think we know where people stand. If there's something new to add to the conversation, but let's cut out this back and forth. Mr. McCarthy? Oh.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just quickly, just for anybody who's watching, is this isn't just a simple 2-month extension. It's 2-month extension to work with other governmental partners to reduce the expenses to the town of Normal. In fact, we're doing exactly what Mr. Nord suggests we do, is attempt to reduce expenses. It's a creative way to make both citizens happy and help out our budget. So I think it's a good win for everybody.
Thank you.
Mayor Kus, I will point out, as Mr. Aldrich indicated, certainly I've noted that Mr. Nord has requested that we bid out the service. I did want to remind council, this is a normal-based business that we've been working with, so we are supporting local at this point. And we do appreciate if council authorizes this tonight, just this temporary extension. So as mentioned previously, we can finalize discussions with our intergovernmental partners.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Nord,
No.
Ms. Smith. Aye. Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, the item is approved. We have no general orders or new business tonight. We also, if you recall, we have changed the public comment rules, that there were public comments on the backside of the meeting, and there are none of those. So we're going to go to council comments. And Ms. Smith, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. I want to say a few words about the recent announcement regarding restrictions on indoor dining in local restaurants imposed in response to increasing COVID-19 infection rates in our region. I understand that this is not welcome news, and some citizens are calling upon us to resist the governor's call to enforce these measures. In reading about the reaction to coronavirus restrictions, I see that much of an individual's perspective is shaped by their personal experience. Individuals who have not become infected or lost family members to this virus question why any restrictions need to be in place, and instead urge individual choice drive our response. This ignores the evidence that this virus is real. This virus has claimed more than 230,000 lives in our country and infected more than 9 million individuals. Our country contains only 4% of the world's population, and yet we account for more than 19.8% of the cases worldwide. Those who argue that we must either fight the virus or support our business, to me, are creating a false equivalency. I believe it is possible to do both, but we must first get the virus under control before we can fully support our businesses. My discussions with restaurants indicate that if citizens do not feel safe, they are not going to patronize indoor dining, regardless of whether formal restrictions are in place. When I joined the council in 2019, I took an oath of office to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois. I take this oath seriously, as my father served in the Marines in World War II and dedicated more than 3 years of his life to defend our country from aggressors in the Pacific. Supporting these constitutions does not allow me the luxury of individually choosing which provisions I deem worthy of fealty. I am asking for citizens to work together to help bring this virus under control. This is not a Republican virus or a Democrat virus or a Libertarian virus or a Green Party virus. It is a highly contagious airborne infection that spreads easily from one infected person to another. So far, the best tools we have are recommendations to wear a mask, keep social distance, and wash your hands frequently. There are many places where the virus infection rate is up. I believe that scientists are doing their best to determine how to minimize COVID spread with the data available to them. I understand COVID fatigue and how exhausting it is to still be facing restrictions as we head into the winter months with their reduced daylight and colder temperatures. What gets me through this is looking at this as if I had just been told I have diabetes. Faced with that diagnosis, I can choose to modify my diet, increase my exercise, and monitor my blood sugar to avoid any complications. Yes, insulin is available to help stabilize blood sugar levels, but even with this therapeutic, diabetics who don't manage their disease can suffer blindness and risk amputation of limbs due to poor circulation. The good news is I don't have diabetes, but many in our community do have this chronic disease and other pre-existing conditions that put them at risk for serious complications if they contract COVID. For now, I haven't become infected with COVID-19. I plan to take one day at a time to practice masking, distancing, and hand washing to help improve the likelihood that I won't get this infection. I take my inspiration from my parents and one of my favorite holiday movies, It's a Wonderful Life. If the US citizens and the fictional citizens of Bedford Falls could band together during the war to save scrap metal, endure gas rationing, grow their own food in victory gardens, and make myriad other sacrifices to defeat a common enemy, then I pray I can find the strength to make it through this winter. I will also work with council members to work with the governor to find help for our businesses that are hurting, because I have been trusted in this position to work on behalf of all our citizens. Any efforts outside available guidelines creates the very authoritarian and arbitrary strait many rail against. And I don't want that at all. Thank you for your trust in me and other members of this council.
Are there any further comments? Mr. Nord?
Thank you. I spoke with quite a few people here over the past few days. Department of Health, Chamber of Commerce, and gosh, quite a few other organizations as well. The chamber had mentioned that they had spoken with the town. And my question is, what is the town's position regarding enforcement on these upcoming restrictions?
Are you asking me, Mr. Nord?
Yeah, I guess Ms. Reese or the mayor, whomever knows, because I don't know.
Sure. Go ahead, Mayor.
If you have other comments, would you finish that? Finish your comments, and then we'll go to questions. Go to that question. It's a fair question.
Okay. Well, a couple other comments, but really it kind of depends on what the town's position is. Otherwise, the comments aren't even relevant.
Well, what's your position, Mr. Nord?
Oh, my position? Well, I've got some questions too. Another question would be with the governor's, he lost his court hearing about his orders being made without the support or the vote of the General Assembly. So that puts into question, are we able to enforce something that there's a question on whether his orders are even legal or not? But all this started with not overloading the hospitals. The hospitals are not overloaded. And the businesses that have contacted me, they're concerned about their employees. They're already struggling right now because they can't have enough people come into the facility, but they're working through it. Their employees are working. And the health department mentioned that they don't have the data to point that we're having problems in Bloomington Normal with people catching COVID through our restaurants. That would be a question that we would have to ask the state, because they're the ones that get the information from the contact tracers. And the folks that are getting tested, many of those people are getting tested because they feel that they may have contracted COVID. They've been in a situation where they question, so then they go get tested. And healthy people tend not to do that because there's no reason to get tested if you don't feel like you have a symptom. So our pool that is being tested is not representative of the entire community. If you're sick and you're getting tested, then of course the positivity rate is going to go up as well. And that was not a conversation or something that I'm just saying on my own. I talked with the health department about that as well. That yes, these numbers are being skewed, but this is why I'm asking, what is our position? There's other municipalities that are not going to be enforcing this. We can't control what the state does, but all we can do is control what we're going to do here locally. And I think it's fair that we let our businesses and residents know what our position is. Right or wrong, they should know what we're going to do, what to expect locally. And that's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Any further comments? I see you moving, Mr. McCarthy, but I can't tell if you want to make a comment or not. No, okay. So tonight, I want to speak to changes that have taken place since the last time we met. Specifically, I'm referring to the state's recent actions restricting indoor dining and reducing the size of gatherings from 50 to 25 people. I've heard from citizens on all sides of this issue. Some want tighter controls and others want fewer restrictions. The reality is there is no singular approach that will widely support or satisfy everyone. I think I speak on behalf of the entire council when I say we are concerned for our restaurants and businesses. The current restrictions will make it difficult for some to survive. Since the start of the pandemic, our challenge has been balancing the health of our community with economic realities. Even though the positivity rate in McLean County is among the lowest in the state, we are part of a much larger region where the rates are higher. We understand the positivity rates were the only factor used by the state when deciding to shut down indoor dining. I do not necessarily agree with how these mitigation decisions were made, and we want local businesses to survive and continue to be a strong part of our economy. To that end, I'm suggesting a multi-pronged approach. First, I'm working with mayors across the state and the Illinois Municipal League to encourage the state to use broader metrics for evaluating COVID shutdowns. Next, we believe a large source of COVID exposures come from private gatherings. I'm encouraging people to continue to limit these exposures to stop the spread of coronavirus. Finally, we all need to support our local businesses. During these shutdowns, order delivery or pick up curbside, dine local, spend local. Personally, I'm reaching out to state and federal legislatures to encourage additional stimulus packages to help our businesses. We want our restaurants to continue to be successful. As a leader, as the mayor and a seasoned business owner, I will not encourage anyone to violate state or federal regulations. After conversations with the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Council, and other community leaders, I believe the best course of action is to focus on actively working with the state and federal leaders to implement change that allow our businesses to remain open. Any complaints received by the town of Normal will be forwarded to the McLean County Health Department, who will respond accordingly. The proper response to this is not political grandstanding, but a focus on finding solutions that help our businesses remain viable. In August and September, when our community faced high positivity rates, the community worked together. That's what we need to do now. Protect the health of our community and help small businesses by working together to find solutions that will keep them viable into the future. Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
I
Mayor Kus.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.